Exit interviews today. We are talking about Jakob Chychrun, the most polarizing player on the Ottawa Senators. Pilsy, I know yesterday you told me that Eric Branstrom wasn't. Is it fair to say that Jakob Chychrun is?
I would say he is, yeah. If not the most, then at least one of the most, because what a fascinating case, Ross. He comes to Ottawa at the trade deadline last year. We were all fired up about him. It was one of the best vibes we've had on the podcast. Jakob Chychrun arriving. He comes in, he plays a handful of games. I believe it was 12 games last season, and he was great for the Senators. It seemed like he fit in. It seemed like he was going to help provide some pop on the power play. Defensively, he was playing well. It looked like he could play the right side even a little bit. And then this season, just things didn't work out for him. It seemed like Jacques Martin wasn't able to find the right role for him to play on this team. He's not able to play the right side. He's taking bad penalties. His defensive play is not as good as we had hoped it would be. And all you need to do is watch the comparison. Claire Hanna tweeted a video of his end of the season presser last year where he's excited. He said he loves being with the boys. He has a smile on his face. He's relaxed. He's joking around. And then compared to this season's end of the season presser, he's a man of few words. He says he doesn't know whether he's going to be here long term. He hasn't thought about it, and just kind of just down in the dumps. And you can tell this is a guy that thought his time in Ottawa was going to go a lot different than it did this season.
It's really sad. It is. This guy cried after his first goal in Ottawa. Grandpa was there with the apple fritter, and it was just kind of a homecoming in a sense that, hey, this is going to work out long term. Unfortunately, not the case. But ironically, he just tied his career high in points. He had 14 goals on the season, played all 82 games, which I think some people would say is most impressive for a guy whose injury concerns were the only thing that was a question mark when the acquisition was made. Minus 30 stands out like a sore thumb, tied with Dominic Kubalik for the worst plus minus on the team. 27 assists. I've mentioned 41 points, ties his career high. And the expected goals percentage at 5-on-5 down at 47.7. You want to be over 50%, right? When you're out there, you want more chances going the other way than your own. With Jakob Chychrun, you mentioned it. We were sold to him as this two-way defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman, and he's very good at being an offensive defenseman. There's a role in the top four for Jakob Chychrun. I think he has to have the right partner and the right situation. He had neither of those in Ottawa. The consistency wasn't there. Him and Chabot were like the only options for each other at 5-on-5 because rightfully so, the coaching staff recognized that Artem Zub and Jake Sanderson, they're the top pair on this team. But then you look at it and Jakob Chychrun's underlying numbers, heck, most of his numbers, they're at their best when they're paired with Jake Sanderson. But only one guy gets to be paired with Jake Sanderson, because we could say that for almost every guy. It's almost like the Mark Stone effect. When whoever was on Mark Stone's line, they were going to get paid. Pajot, Smith, Moore, Colin White, got to mention him because Mark Stone got him like $20 million. But when you look at the blue line, like when you're a guy who after this season, what do you think he's going to command? Over $6 million on the open market?
I would say that's fair. Regardless of the term, it's probably going to start with a 6.
Well, you better be able to create your own, like drive your own pair. Right? I know it's more of a forward use, like drive your own line, but you have to be able to be the top guy on the pair that you're on. You can't be a complementary type piece with that kind of salary incoming. I was really disappointed with the defensive effort. Sometimes the intensity level that was being played. Sometimes he's looking for pennies after whistles where other guys are pushing and shoving. Those things are where you want trees, not shrubs on the back end. You want guys who are going to be sturdy, stand tall, make life miserable for other players in front of the net. Like, I look at it, you mentioned his penalty minutes were off the charts this season. Not a lot of roughings, not a lot of cross-checkings, not a lot of like make your life, right? Not those make your life miserable penalties where you're like, all right, we'll kill that off for them. Like, we left a mark with that one, right? He might think twice before he comes and pokes at our goalie again. These were penalties where it's like non-contact penalties.
Yeah, and that was the disappointing part of it, and it seemed like it was bad timing too. And Ross, I feel like for me, when I think of Jakob Chychrun this year, I feel like so many goals. If you were a producer for TSN and you're covering Sens game, all right, Sens get scored on.
Yeah,
Show the opponent Selly, show zoom out, show the crowd, zoom in, show Jakob Chychrun distraught on the ice. Like
and
that.
looking around at somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, that was part of it too. Like that was the sequence that the director for in the truck was like, "All right, I already know what we're going to go. Let's do it. Let's do it." And it just seemed like too often he was lost out there. Now, he was tasked with playing the right side a bit with Shabbat, and although the numbers, I was looking back on that, Ross, cuz the eye test for Shabbat and Chychrun was not good. But advanced analytics actually wasn't that bad for them, surprisingly, but you just, it wasn't sustainable having those two guys together and two lefties there. And then you look at the games played, 82. We talked about it. Jakob Chychrun, his career high before this was his rookie season was 68. So he hadn't even cracked 70 games before in a season, and he got 82. So you would have thought, okay, this is going to be a lot of time for him to get into rhythm, for him to be consistent. He's been in Ottawa all year now. He's going to find his way. And sure, the points are there, but when you're a dash 30, like the 41 points kind of is watered down there. And a lot of those points, I'm sure, came on the power play because this was a guy that got at least a lot of his goals on the power play.
Half his goals, 7 out of his 14 goals were on the power play. 16 points were on the power play.
Which is fine. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to knock a guy for getting points on his power play. I'm just saying the 5-on-5 play, he wasn't able to get it done with the impact we thought he would have.
Tied with Artem Zub for the team lead amongst defensemen for 5-on-5 scoring, but you kind of expected a bit more for 82 games of Jakob Chychrun. That said, good offensive defenseman, great shot. Like he's a guy who can shoot the puck. You just wish that there was a bit more in zone defending, because I think he defends fine off the rush. He's got that patented one arm wave, but then it's when he gets,
see that as much, Ross.
Right, but he leads with his stick so much that he allows guys to go wide on him, and then when they cut wide, he doesn't finish them into the boards, and he doesn't make their life miserable and pinch and do all that. So I wish we saw more from Jakob Chychrun. I think Jakob Chychrun's a better player than we saw in Ottawa, but at this point, it's like the Sens D-core is such a mess with all these left shots. You look at the contracts, and like if he had Shabbat's contract and Shabbat had his, we'd probably be leaning and being like, okay, Chychrun's better than we saw. He can bounce back. But now it's like, well, who are you going to cut bait with? Probably the guy who's going to be easier to move and bring you back more value. And you look at the minutes played with a partner, Chychrun and JBD, they ran out together for 431 minutes. Only Sanderson and Zub played more together as a D pair than Chychrun and JBD. Their expected goals percentage when they're on the ice together was dead last among any Sens D pair that played 150 minutes together. Dead last. 41%. 41%. Not good enough. Can't run it back with this. Got to make a change. I think Chychrun's gone by the draft. If he's back, there's a lot to work on defensively, but there's a lot of skill there for him. I just think that Sens fans are so done with the Pierre Dorion era that they associate this trade, this guy, with Dorion. I think that they'd rather Staios go out, get his right shot D in free agency, whether it's DeMello, Tanev, you name it. And I think you just kind of rebuild the D-core. This would be the ultimate, like, okay, things are changing. You can move out the depth guys, the JBDs, the guys like that, and it doesn't make a huge difference. Obviously, if the guy you bring in adds a ton more value, sure. But like this would be signaling to the whole league, like our D-core wasn't good enough. We're making change.
Yeah, I agree. It's just all points too clearly to Jakob Chychrun being the guy moved out to shake up the D-core, free up some cap space, and just allow the new regime of Ottawa Senators to start making their mark on this team.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Jakob Chychrun's season and 12 games with the Ottawa Senators.